Welcome to another episode of the Boba Joe Show.
What's going, everybody? You ready for the big triple threat?
Oh, yes. We've talked about good movies plenty of times, but today we're going to talk about some bad movies. Or are they so bad that they're good? Who knows? We'll find out. Actually, it reminds me, I did put in a special request in. I think I sent it by fax machine or snail mail. Someone had to do an intro for us. I forget who it was, but let's just play it and see.
Welcome. This is the cookie for Trashtopies Theater. Today, we're going to see films everybody hates. Me hope you enjoy it.
Nom, nom, nom. Oh, nom, 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 nom. Ah.
Thanks, Cookie Monster, for stopping by. That totally wasn't my voice slowed down slightly with a weird accent. For doing that special intro for us.
Johnny was one of the backers of the failed HasLab Cookie Monster.
Yes. I needed that life-size Cookie Monster to eat all these cookies I got sitting around here.
Yeah. A trio of... I was going to say a trio of terrible movies, but, you know, they're not really...
They're bad movies, but they're not terrible movies. Is sort of the qualifier we'll give. They're lesser sequels, the studio-driven sort of sequels, where we had the heights of the first films, and each of these are all equally excellent. And then as the sequels go on, they're like not so excellent.
And, you know, I think... You know, I don't think Robocop 2 is as good as the first Robocop, but, you know, it's still a pretty enjoyable and well-made movie.
Say the same
Superman
with
2,
Superman 2.
I do love Superman 2 in a lot of ways, like especially the Donner cut. It's a really cool movie. And, you know, Turtles 2, Secrets of the Ooze, it has its moments and it's got some fun bits in it. But yeah, the entries we're looking at today, I don't think anybody would really say that they're the finest hour or the best thing about any of the franchises that they're a part of.
Yeah, we've got like substitute actors. We've got like not the original cast in all these films. We've got different people and different directors and different producers and different lighting schemes that don't quite look as good as the earlier films.
Yeah, one of the Robocop especially, it's like no budget compared to the other two movies. It looks like it just looks so cheap in comparison to Robocop 1 and 2. Superman 3 is a bit different in the sense that it's clearly a film that has a lot of money behind it. They've definitely spent money. There's a shit ton of big stunts and big explosions. It's not so much the budget, it's more the kind of direction and overall tone of the movie is where it falls down, as I'm sure we're going to get into.
I was watching on the Blu-ray there was like a featurette of the making of from like back then Superman 3, and it had like a presidential premiere tying in with like some, I don't know, kids charity thing and such. And they had like the Shrivers and some of the Kennedy people and footage of the White House. And I was like, oh, this is all very fancy and official.
Yeah, as long as no evil Superman shows up to, you know, to ruin everything.
No Bizarro Superman.
And then, like, you know, with Ninja Turtles 3, I just don't know how I feel about it. It's a very neutral movie for me. You know, looking at these three, it's okay, I guess, you know, to watch.
It's a very kiddie film, and like the tone is the closest to. Didn't come until years later. We had the Saban live action Ninja Turtle show that was, you know, the same Haim Saban that did the Power Rangers, the American edit of the you know, Zoo Ranger.
Yeah, I think as we're going back today and we're going to look at this stuff, you know, Robocop and Turtles, you know, at least for me at the time, had a bigger impact like as a kid, like I had Robocop toys, I had Turtles toys. I wasn't really that. Not that I wasn't into Superman, but I wasn't into Superman on the same level as I would have been Robocop and the Turtles. So it having like a weaker movie in the series wasn't going to affect me as much
Yeah.
as it kind of did with Robocop and Turtles. And also, I think, you know, you can watch all these movies as an adult and kind of see their flaws instantly. And maybe it was kind of the same when you were a kid, but I think when you're a kid, you have a lot more kind of tolerance and patience for stuff
Yes.
not being that good. So
I didn't know the first
it's
time I saw
weird.
Robocop 3 that it wasn't even the proper cast because he's got the helmet and everything. I didn't know.
The first thing that gave it away for me is when he was just in a scene with one of the other cops and he just looked a bit short. He just didn't look right.
Yeah. I mean,
Peter
now I've
Weller was
watched them
obviously a
so
tall
many
man.
times, I would know from the voice alone. But back then, I didn't, didn't know Peter Weller's voice that well.
Yeah, I suppose we'll kick off with RoboCop 3 since he's first here in the lineup with the pictures.
I do like that old Kruger from Industrial Smelting, George's boss from Seinfeld, is quite a bit of this movie.
So look, I suppose RoboCop 1 was a critical success and a commercial success eventually at the end of its run. RoboCop 2, you know, it didn't do as well critically, but it made plenty of money, you know, enough to justify that we're going to make, you know, a third film. So there was a couple of problems kicking off with RoboCop 3 right from the get-go, and one of the major problems is the fact that Orion Studios are hemorrhaging money around the time that RoboCop 3 is going to be produced, and they really just can't afford to give it the type of budget they gave to RoboCop 1 and 2. Studio was really struggling in the early 90s. I think, was it like Dances with Wolves or something? They'd spent tons of their money on marketing like one film that did well enough for them commercially, but it's at the same time it fucking bankrupted everything else they were pretty much working on. And like RoboCop 3 was one of those big casualties because, you know, it had its production budget slashed, you know, so they just didn't have the money to put into it. Then we had Peter Weller, he didn't want to go back and do it. He wasn't interested in putting the suit back on. So
He was too busy on WCW.
Yeah. We're going to have to do a recast as our lead guy. And look, sorry, I can't remember the name of that dude who plays RoboCop and RoboCop 3. I didn't even look it up before we began.
Robert
you know,
John Burke. Got some
there you go.
notes on the side there.
There you go. You know, Lois is still in the movie, but that's another thing. They kill off Lois. In a movie that's so fucking tame, where like they nearly, you know, run away from violence. Somehow they managed to squeeze in killing off one of the most likable characters by like shot in the chest, you know.
And it feels like Robo 3 was very much going towards the video games and more merchandise stuff, like the Turtles sequels and Ghostbusters sequels. It's like, let's get more toys and stuff for kids and tone down the violence, you know.
Yeah, and look, that's it's a money-making ploy on their part. Like they're trying to offset the overall studio losses that they're already suffering. So yeah, if we can get some type of kid-friendly movie out there, like, because another thing about this movie was heavily pushed as a VHS rental. It actually got a wider release, you know, on VHS than it did in the theaters. It had a very limited theatrical run compared to the other two, and even on YouTube, if anybody's curious to go and look them up, there's lots of kind of, it's like, you know, Blockbuster Video and things like that, where they're kind of hyping RoboCop 3 coming to video, so and it's going to be
93
on
was
VHS.
RoboCop 3. Just to think what else was around then. Well, this is leading into like Jurassic Park territory and films we want to see at the box office.
Yeah, like imagine if RoboCop went up against Jurassic Park at the theaters. You know what a bloodbath that would have been.
It would have been that Brontosaurus scene at the start with Bigfoot, like Monty Python coming out and just splat by RoboCop. It's all over.
That's the thing, you know. It's it's that double whammy. You could almost get away with the lack of budget and the big cast change if they then went on to try and maintain the tone and the kind of spirit of the previous two movies. But the fact that we got this PG, child-friendly,
Yeah,
just and it's a kind of schizophrenic movie as well. It doesn't really know what it wants to be, because it does veer, like I said, on the one hand it's child-friendly, but on the other hand, we are kind of seeing a few kind of violent deaths and stuff that make you kind of go, oh, is this for kids?
yes,
Like, because apart from Lois getting shot, they do introduce the ninja samurai robot guy who,
yeah. I never
he
know.
slashes up some
Is he
guys with
actually?
swords.
Is he fully an android or a cyborg? Does he have any human stuff other than the skin? I never quite understand.
I think he's fully an android
Right.
because there's like a double of him, isn't there? Or
Yeah,
maybe a
yeah. Let's see
triple of
another
him.
one.
Yeah, you see more of
So
them at the end.
somehow, from the first two films, we've gone from experimental cyborg, where people go crazy and suicide themselves, to full-on android with nothing in between.
And I suppose he's a high-tech Japanese model from the rival company that's going to
Yeah,
buy
there we go.
OCP. And this is
That's a
another thing.
different film.
So
We need to see.
yeah, it's we've got OCP that's totally on the decline in this movie as well. They haven't gone to Dallas or any of those other locations they went in the other movies to make it look more futuristic. They're literally just shooting in Detroit. It's like plain as day, present day Detroit. The old man is not in the movie.
Now we got Rip Torn and Sid as the
We got
CEO.
Rip Torn. To be fair, I'll actually say one thing. Rip Torn is pretty entertaining, and also you might have him there in your notes. That English dude who plays the guy McDaggett, who's like the main body and kind of captain of the security forces or whatever. He's pretty
The Man
funny
in
as
Grey.
a villain as well. Yeah, I'll
Yeah,
get
they're
you,
good. They're
Mr.
good.
Robocop.
Good character actors. They're definitely but you can put them in anything. They're going to be enjoyable.
But it's cheap as shit
Yeah,
compared to the other two movie. Like, it
I do
looks
like
so
he gets that
goddamn
machine
cheap.
gun arm with his heart that slots on is kind of cool, but that feels very action figure-y. And we also
Yeah,
get CCH Pounder that I know from The Shield. She's always chasing after Vic Mackey and trying to nail his corrupt ass. But she's good, but she's had an amazing career and good in everything. So
and I think, is she another one that they either kill her off or they remove her character pretty quickly from the movie.
yeah,
She's not in the movie enough, nearly. The fact that they even got her in, they're lucky. And we do
yeah,
got a
and
few
it
returning
feels almost like
characters.
parts of it almost feel like Demolition Man, where it's like, here's some street people, refugees, and here's a random kid to forget about 5 minutes later that you don't really not that interested in. It's like they don't know what they
Yeah,
want to do with the story, and he's like Robocop for the people, but like, who are these people? We don't even really know that.
and like there's a couple of elements from the previous movies that return. Like, they still do good, like, funny TV ads and stuff like that, and
Yeah,
like certain things are okay. But yeah, it's so all over the place. So the story is that OCP are being bought out by the Japanese corporation. These kind of group of people who are living in old Detroit, they don't want to leave the area that they're living in, so OCP can build over it and finally build Delta City, which they've been taking fucking years to build at
yes,
this stage. They must have Irish developers working on that project. But
or Australian builders. We'll come back 2 years later. We'll start it. We'll disappear to the pub.
cost always going up and up and up. So yeah, like so they're trying to get rid of these people out of the area. So they hire this kind of corrupt British military guy to run these OCP special forces that they pretty much act as, like, stormtroopers,
Yeah,
gathering up people and like ripping them out of their homes and driving them away. And so a resistance is formed among the Detroit locals to kind of fight back, and then Robocop is called in to try and put a stop to it. But of course he is distraught and confused because he has to serve the public trust. It's one of his prime directives, and it's not really a good thing
Been
for this evil
rebooted into a
corporation.
totally different actor. Poor fella.
Yes, poor fella. Like, he just doesn't. He's lost a couple of inches in his height, like, unexpectedly, and his voice sounds funny. He just doesn't know what to think, what's going on. But yeah, we see. So RoboCop, he opts to actually help the rebels as opposed to the evil corporation, which results, unfortunately, in poor Nancy Allen being shot, and Robo gets badly damaged by the OCP military, so he has to be taken in by the rebels and rebuilt. And as you mentioned, when he's getting kind of fixed up, that's when he gets his rocket pack and gun arm and other stuff, they'll use.
I remember
later on in the
that
movie.
jetpack thing turns up in the Frank Miller Robocop versus Terminator comic as well.
And you mentioned Frank Miller. We should probably mention again, this is another Frank Miller Robocop story, just like Robocop 2, except it's even worse somehow. They managed to rip up
there's people who are like, well, I don't know people, but I mean, somebody filmed with someone who's done breakdowns of, like, the Frank Miller script for Robocop 2, and it's like, oh, they edited so much, and it would have been awesome if they'd done the original one. And years later, people have gone, no, it was an undecipherable mess. They had to make something out of it.
Yeah, and I think we mentioned this. I think when we were talking about on one of our many RoboCop and probably RoboCop Terminator talks and stuff. But like Miller's RoboCop comics, they're only okay. So I can't imagine that it was like anything groundbreaking that he really.
I would almost like to see. I mean, years later, they did, like, I think it was Avatar Press, to those Frank Miller script RoboCop comics and all that, and other ones. I'd almost like to see Frank Miller's RoboCop 2 script, but have someone else do the fucking comic. Rewrite it, but do the ideas of it, but have someone else actually do the writing and dialogue and actually make it better. Then I want to read that, because the one that exists is just it's just like curiosity reading it. It's not really enjoyable reading.
Yeah, so OCP, their new kind of Japanese overlords, are not happy with the lack of progress with them taking over and building Delta City, so they send their ninja cyborg android guy over to dispatch and dispose of the rebels. And this leads to a big showdown with RoboCop. They have a schmoz. There's also like a big kind of ending sequence in OCP headquarters where RoboCop faces down the evil, McDaggett and a couple of these cyborg android ninja guys. It's all very Power Rangery. It's just
it is.
It's just not good. It's just not good. Like, something's off right from the beginning of the movie when RoboCop gets out of his car to take on a band of criminals, and instead of like actually just shooting them, he shoots at the ground at their feet and they run away.
Yeah, like Terminator 2.
Yeah, like that's not what RoboCop does. That's not what RoboCop would have just went bang, 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 and that's them all dispatched of and dealt with.
It's like they had well, I mean, we're going to talk about next, like Turtles and Superman, but like just to throw out the other different sequels. Now, like Turtles 3 is obviously very different than the other ones. Superman 3, reasonable budget. Superman 4 was a canon film, garbage budget, didn't do well. It was still a big budget for a canon film, but obviously compared to the proper studio ones. And it feels like Robocop 3 was going, it's like, okay, we've got the canon budget, but we don't have any of the cool violence like a Chuck Norris film or anything to make it a bit kitsch or, interesting.
Yeah, and it's so sad because they probably could have made something at least that was more stylistically
If it had been more
like the first film.
More like Hobo with the Shotgun, or more like a what do you call it, like a Death Wish film or something, something that's like extreme and grindhouse. I feel like it could have been a fun movie and still had some political, social commentary there.
See, that's the problem though as well. They're acting like they have a budget to play around with, and they're trying to do this stuff that they just can't pull off. That stunt at the beginning of the movie, like Robo like drives his car off a multi-story car park and like shoots his way out the roof. It just looks cheap. And then, like later on, when he actually gets the rocket pack and he's flying over the streets of Detroit, it looks like something out of Power Rangers. Like it really looks something
It looks.
like
It doesn't look as
kids'
good.
TV drivel.
Like in like your rear projections and screens and mats and all that. You go back to like the first Superman film with Donna, and you know, you're seeing a man flying. Obviously, no, he's not really flying; it's a background, but it's a pretty good effect for the time. It's like it was the standard of the day. And you can look at Supergirl, and it looks fairly shit because it was a canon film. The budget's no good. It looks like watching Supergirl flying, not like watching Richard Donner's Superman flying. When you see Robocop, it's like so janky; it just looks terrible.
Well, you know, look, speaking of maybe flying effects not being up to scratch, maybe that is a good segue into Superman 3 as well, because by no means does the flying in it look as bad as the flying in Robocop 3, but it is noticeably maybe not as smooth as Superman 1 and 2 when you...
Actually, I've used the wrong example. Superman 4, it looks pretty shit. Supergirl actually looks decent. They actually improved somewhat on the stuff from the other ones.
Where do you stand on Superman 3 yourself? Like,
Well,
I
it's
enjoyed it
interesting.
now when I rewatched it this week, I have to say.
Yeah, it's probably, well, of these three films, it's probably the one that's the most enjoyable to watch overall. It's like these other two movies, we've got substitute actors instead of we get, like in Turtles 3, we get a substitute April, we don't get Judith Hoag, we get Paige Turco. In Superman 3, instead of our usual Lois, who is at the very beginning of the film and the slight bookend at the end, instead we get Lana Lang, played by is it Annette O'Toole, who's good. It's a good version of Lana Lang, and I do like seeing Smallville in the film. Oh, what's happened? It's timed out. So you're still there, but it's timing out and spinning. So hang on, what's going on here? There we go. It's reloading. Yeah, the internet's just lagging. You're still there.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but
so we get,
like you, I forgot this. You know, Lois Lane, Margaret Kidder was even in the movie. Been so long.
Yeah, she's only at the very beginning. Like I had to double check and look because when I was rewatching the other day, I kind of wasn't paying attention to the beginning. I double checked the cast and went back and went, no, she was at the very beginning, and it is in the documentaries on the box sets, which I've watched a few times. It talks about how she basically got screwed over by the cell kinds and all that, and they didn't want to pay her properly, and that's why she's not really in the movie. But yeah, we don't get Gene Hackman, of course. We get the other businessman dude who's like just just another generic businessman who wants to make money, and he's not like evil scientist Luthor. He's more like 80s Superman comics Luthor, where it's just a businessman who wants to make money, and Superman's just in the way. He's not really a villain. He just wants to get like oil and whatever other money, so mucking up the world economy so he can make his profits. And Richard Pryor, it also came up in the making of behind the scenes thing. It said he was on, I don't know, one of those late night shows. He got like Letterman's and Carson and all those kind of ones. He used to do a bit on that where he's acting out like the Superman films and obviously really enjoyed them. And that's basically how he got cast in Superman 3. Because he kept acting out these bits, and they're like, "Hey, let's get that guy. He's well known," and it becomes this weird vehicle where it's a Richard Pryor vehicle where he pretty much gets the most screen time of anybody in the whole film.
And he gets to do some of his Superman parody as well when he does
Yeah.
the skis with the tablecloth as the cape and stuff. And yeah, I have to say I did actually I enjoyed it a lot more than I was expecting to when I was rewatching it. Like of these three we're looking at today, I probably enjoyed it the most. I was just kind of surprised at how much I forgot about. See, it's one of those things like Superman 1 and Superman 2 are pretty strong movies, so they are kind of hard to follow. And I like maybe it was a bit of an impossible task with the way they kind of lined up everything, and like that stuff, yeah, like you mentioned with Lois Lane. Also, yeah, no Gene Hackman. It is a bit different. The story is like, there was, lightheartedness and fun moments in Superman 1 and 2, but by golly, they just love it in Superman 3. Like they are going
because
hard
Richard
for
Lester's directing, who did Superman 2 after Donna was booted off, and he does the real, I don't know, Looney Tunes, Saturday morning cartoon kind of thing. Like the beginning of it's full of all sorts of visual gags and stuff. And he's good at doing that, but like it's not necessarily what you want to see in a Superman film.
Yeah. Yeah, and obviously because Richard Pryor being the way he is as well, he is like
Yeah.
doubling down on the
And
visual comedy.
other things he worked on were like the Beatles film, so it's that manic kind of energy.
Yeah. But you know, like I was saying earlier, it definitely has a budget and a noticeable amount of money put into it. Even if it's not as visually impressive as the first two, there is still a lot of like, you know, big time explosions and big set pieces that kind of happen where you can see like where money was spent on it, even if it's not like the main focus of the movie. Because it's a crazy story and premise anyway. Like the whole thing is just nuts with the supercomputer and then, you know, turning Superman evil and then splitting Superman from Clark Kent, even though they are still obviously the one. And but even before that, when Superman's going around like just being generally evil and getting drunk in the bar and he's
Yeah.
down in the whiskey and he's flicking all the peanuts and like
Yeah,
breaking the
so
glass.
he goes from like indifferent to like mean, and he has the desaturated colors. His hair's slightly different, slicked a little bit differently, and I
He gets
think
a bit of the shadow, doesn't he? 5 o'clock shadow on the
yeah,
face.
yeah,
Gets a bit of beard going.
and I think they've done a bit more makeup on his face. He looks like more tan and all that as well. But I think it shows Christopher Reeve like what an excellent actor it is when he fights himself as Clark Kent and Superman. And you can see all of his different postures and mannerisms. He's kind of more hunched over with Kent and the glasses and hair. And I think he's like really good as the mean bad Superman.
Yeah.
So much so, it would have been cool if he'd come back years later in a TV show like Flash or something as like a Bizarro or Ultraman. Would have been cool to see him come back and do something like that.
Probably the highlight of the movie are those moments. That's the thing though. Tonally, that stuff like, you know, the fight in the junkyard and stuff where the two are split apart, like that's kind of quite serious and dramatic, but
Yeah,
it doesn't really mesh the same with the rest of the movie that just kind of taking
no.
the piss out of itself constantly, you know.
I remember key scenes from this film quite well. Like in the first half, we get the combine harvester where they're having the picnic, and he rescues a little kid who pretty obnoxious kid. I couldn't really stand the film, but he rescues him. I remember about the ice and the chemical fire at the start, and he gets that big thing of ice and puts it on there, and the fight in the junkyard, and then the lady getting turned into a robot at the end by the supercomputer. That was like almost like still images in my mind because I actually saw this in the cinema when I was about 4 years old. So that's the things I remember from it.
The robot lady, I kind of remember that being a bit better as a kid than I definitely did when I rewatched it recently. Her transformation is pretty cool.
You can tell they done one of those like time lapse things where they then sped it up. And
yes, I was getting VR Troopers vibes. Not to keep going back to Power Rangers, but I was getting VR Troopers because it shows like it shows
music video.
Yeah, being wrapped up in the wires and stuff. It's like take me back to my virtual reality.
And when Superman goes to fight the big supercomputer, he's like, well, I just brought in an ordinary can of acid. The computers don't know about that. I'm like, what? Computers don't know about acid?
Yeah, because he gets scanned when he's walking in, doesn't he?
Yeah.
And the computer's like, oh, there's no danger with that can of liquid he has.
Corrosive acid.
Yeah, but yeah, it's weird. Like on paper, the story kind of it's okay, I guess, but just in execution, I think because of the whole jumping around, like with one moment being a comedy, the next moment it being kind of serious, and
that's
it
kind
goes
of
for long periods of time.
Director Richard Lester as well. He's the same in Superman 2, where it's like, I mean, obviously it got taken. The Cellcons booted Donner and had to reshoot scenes and all that for the, I don't know, Directors Guild credit and that bullshit. But he kind of just goes back and forth between the serious drama stuff and the comedy stuff without really having a consistent tone.
Yeah, it's just, it doesn't hit the same. Definitely not. Like, and yeah, I think though, maybe, and I know maybe this was the case for me, I think a lot of the heat that Superman 4 gets kind of bleeds into Superman 3.
Yeah.
Because in my mind,
3 is definitely better than 4.
Oh, it's so much better than 4. It's so much better than 4. And like, you know, evil Superman is way cooler than like fucking Nuclear Man or whatever
Yeah,
that dude
Nuclear Man.
number 4 and
And,
stuff.
and in my mind, that Nuclear Man, I always think it's like He-Man or Dolph Lundgren or something, because it's not, but just he's blonde and I must have been He-Man.
Did you get Hackman back for 4?
Yeah, he's back in number 4, and John Cryer plays Luthor Jr., Lenny Luthor, who then years later in the Supergirl show he becomes normal Luthor, and he's actually really good version of Luthor in that TV show.
Yeah, Superman 4: The Quest for Peace and Supergirl might possibly have to be discussed separately someday in their own, you know, because it's it's a
Supergirl's
weird
got
one
some
actually.
good, like, matte shots, and like the wire work is actually quite good in it, but the film's just a horrible mess in the story.
We actually haven't even hit Superman 1 and 2 in our discussion. So they like
No,
there's
we'll come back.
plenty
We'll
of
come back to
Superman.
them.
Yeah, we'll
We'll
do
come
full
back.
circle on these stuff.
I just thought it was fun
But
to talk about some bad films, and I'm trying to get 3 that were kind of similar in how they got substitutions and cast and kind of some similar things going.
the lady though, like you were saying earlier, the Lana Lang, she is good in this movie. I have to say she's well cast, and it's interesting that she'd come back later on and actually be in that Smallville series.
Yes,
So she's got a bit of a Superman pedigree going there.
they're good that with the old well, it's usually Warner films or whoever, but the DC stuff that was adapted into films, a lot of people pop up in the TV shows years later. It's kind of a heritage like that, where they bring people back, like John Wesley Shipp and the Flash, and then he came back for the other Flash. And
Yeah, and I'm guessing Margot Kidder or whatever her name is was going through, like, apart from what was happening with the studio, I'm guessing she was going maybe through a bit of a substance abuse, possibly rough patch at the time of this, because she looks somewhat different physically than she did in the previous 2 movies. I'm not saying that just to be like fucking taking jabs at her, but she looks like possibly she's been through some shit in real life, that's kind of affecting her. So maybe not in the best headspace at the time anyway, even if she was.
what do you think about when Superman, before he's like really evil, he's more just like an annoying dickhead prankster, and he like straightens the Tower of Pisa, and the poor guys are trying to sell the souvenirs, like getting all bad and like smashing them.
Yeah. And then when he gets good later on, he comes back and redoes it, doesn't he?
That's the very end of the film, is he's like, you see, he's just like, I've had it. He starts smashing all the ornaments.
It's kind of almost like I don't know. I was getting from the story as well. It was nearly like old the Fleischer cartoon vibes as well, because it's a very kind of, like you said, the guy is such a generic kind of evil businessman. Even the whole idea of the supercomputer and stuff, and Superman having to go against this like robot,
very like 50s comic book kind of stuff.
Yeah, real pulpy comic book story. But I'll not knock it for that. Like I said, on paper it looks like okay, it's just in execution, and because of the dude's, his own predilection for just mishmashing these type of tones together, it just turns out a bit funky sometimes.
And you get as the businessman's I guess she's like the bimbo girlfriend, because they never really tell you much about the character, Pamela Stevenson, who was born in Australia, also lives in New Zealand, went on to live and sort of do education in like Britain and that, and then later on, we know her from Not 9 O'Clock News in the 70s, and I think it was towards the end of the 80s, going to the 90s, she'd married Billy Connolly.
Yeah. And look, she's actually
she's quite accomplished
in
stuff. I mean, not so much an actress. I mean, career-wise, she's quite accomplished in it.
Well, she looks great in Superman 3, I have to say.
Yeah, I didn't even know it was the same person, because I'd seen it in Not 9 O'Clock News reruns, which is obviously quite young, and then not seeing her in anything until something in the 90s, 2000, which is a lot older. So I had to look up and see, is this the same person or just the same name? And it is the same lady.
It's hard. I think another thing that kind of hurts this movie, but it's hard not to compare, Vaughn and her to like Hackman and like Miss Taskmacher in the other movie. Like, it's the same structure and everything, and you're kind of constantly reminded, like, because of the similarities, it does make you think of Superman 1 and 2 a lot, and just kind of.
Yeah, and there's weird stuff with that Pamela Stevenson character where she talks in that baby doll Marilyn Monroe squeaky voice, like in the old gangster films and that. And then now and then she drops it, and it's like she's acting within an act. And it turns out she's got a PhD and she's really smart, knows all sorts of stuff, but they don't want to hear
Yeah.
about it. But now and then she drops the charade and goes, "Well, actually, I've got a PhD. I know this, this, and this, and this is why." But it's real random the way it pops up in the film.
Yeah, she's the one who initially knows about the kryptonite.
Yeah,
to,
yeah.
to give
And
Superman
then how they've made the
kryptonite.
computer turn on by pressing the button when they go in.
Yeah.
So it's just quite strange, unless it's just so uneven.
Yeah, that's probably actually the best way to describe it, as uneven. But like we're saying, and we're going to get to Turtles now in a moment, but of the three, I think it's definitely the highest quality overall. For all
Yes.
its flaws, and little annoyances here and there.
It still feels like something you could watch at the cinema and enjoy, and which I actually did when I was like 4, and I barely remembered it until this week. I was like, oh yeah, I actually did see it. I had to look up when it was. It was like 83, 84. Was at the cinema?
And there's a few nice little visual kind of effects and trickery that they use in this to do the transition. Like when Superman and or when Clark Kent and Superman split apart and stuff, and different little tricks they do for him changing and becoming Superman. It's got some nice visuals in it, definitely, and good stunts.
I like the scene where he's first going bad, and then the little kid he rescued earlier is like, "There's Superman. He's just having a bad day. He's not bad." And Lana Lang's like, "Oh, he can't hear you. Just hush up." And he's like, "No, he's got super hearing and he's flying it away." You can tell he's just like, "Shut up, kid. I don't want to hear it." And the kid keeps going, "But Superman, and he can still hear it from miles away. That's just a fun kind of callback to the comics where he does have super hearing, and even though he's ignoring him, he can hear him. He's getting annoyed.
Doesn't have a problem with drinking and flying Superman either, because
and then or rescuing
that's
someone
after he
from
comes out of the
Statue of
pub.
Liberty, and he's like, "I hope you don't need rescuing, guy. Don't do that anymore." It's like that's.
Yeah, he's only willing to help her out if he gets a bit of, because she sends him, then she's like, "Oh, Superman, I'll more or less sleep with you if you go and get this
Yeah,
stuff
that's a
off
very
that
saucy
military
kind
boat."
of scene. Actually, before we get on to Turtles, like that's one of the comic book callback thing is the scene where Pryor pretends to be that general and comes to Smallville with the kryptonite, where he didn't know what one of the ingredients was, so he just went tar because it was on his pack of cigarettes, so he mucked it up. But in the comics, they've had loads of different versions of kryptonite that do things like just turn in weird colors or change his powers or do magical effects. And I didn't know in previous times until now, but now I've read that many comics went, oh, that's one of those 50s, 60s things where you've got a different form of kryptonite that mucks him up and does something weird to him. That's why he went evil and different Superman.
Yeah, that makes sense. So I think
So I didn't know that until I rewatched it again yesterday, and I just kind of worked it out in my head. I went, oh yeah, it's referencing those, like they used to have like gold kryptonite and black kryptonite, all kinds of weird stuff.
It is ridiculous though how he just hands Superman the kryptonite. He just hands it right to him, and Superman just takes it in both hands. Totally forgetting his previous plan.
I'll hand this to you. There you go, Mark.
Yeah.
Just take that.
Both
It won't poison you or kill you.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
And I'm just going to go and sit down now and hold this in my hands and hold it
Don't
as close
smoke
as
it.
possible to me.
It might have interesting effects.
But speaking of green, we got 4 green dudes who are looking to travel to feudal Japan. They're looking to mess with the timeline. They're looking to introduce all sorts of weird new toys into the Playmates vintage line that are going to be mixed in unapologetically with the regular figures and confuse us all.
Hopefully, Casey Jones can teach some samurai guards about hockey. That's the aim of this movie.
We discussed this before, I think, maybe privately. It's got, depending on what part of the world you come from, it's either Ninja Turtles 3 or it's Ninja Turtles, Turtles in Time or Turtles Through Time or something like that. Might have been like a sub name for
I've
it.
not seen that.
I know there's a video game with the same name, but it's like nothing
yeah,
to do with it,
Australia, New Zealand, it's just Turtles 3. But yeah, we did talk about that, and it's I don't know if they started unofficially calling it that or what, because I have heard it reference that, but not in these territories.
What do you know about this in terms of like just anything to do with how it came about? Do you know anything, you know,
I don't know much
production-wise, creative-wise?
I've never really cared enough to find out.
Yeah, same here.
There's
I'll
number
tell you
and
one
two.
thing now.
1 and 2, you had
There's
Henson Workshop doing the suits. I remember number 3 was not Henson, which is pretty obvious in the first 5 minutes.
Yeah.
I always remember the suits being really bad in this one, and I mean they are bad, but they're not as bad as I remembered when I was looking at it again yesterday. I think part of the problem is, I mean, obviously it's not the Jim Henson Workshop, so they don't have that same life to them that the Henson magicians do. But also, it's kind of 2 different films here. We've got the segments where they're in the sewers with Splinter, and then you got the bits where they're in ancient Japan or I don't know, Canada or wherever they filmed Stargate and MacGyver. Basically looks like forest and, you know, greed and horses. The outdoor stuff looks fine, and that looks like a low budget, but the cinematography looks fine. But all the stuff in the sewers, it's super bright. All the darkness of the first films is gone. We both tonally and aesthetically, visually, in the sewer it would be darker, and you know, think of like Batman, The Shadow, The Crow, Phantom. Like, think of like darker looking stuff. It looks like the Saban Power Rangers shows, but everything's super bright and everything's so well lit and it's shining off their green suit heads and everything. And then you got Splinter has a voice where he's like he's losing his voice, so that just sounds terrible, like a completely different voice actor. But actually, the turtle voices are pretty decent though. Like the acting, a lot of them some of them have returned. Corey Feldman or whatever, he's there again. Oh, Ho Sung Pak is one of the stunt guys in it, who was Liu Kang in the first Mortal Kombat video game.
Casey Jones is back, isn't he?
Yeah, he's back. But we don't. Judith Hoger's gone. We get Paige Turco, who's nothing against her, but I'm just like, it's Substitute April again from I don't care about. But then we get Elias Coty is back again as Casey in these little segments in the sewer stuff, you know, which he's fine in those, but they're like little vignettes that are almost separate to the film that are inserted into this other film.
So for anybody who hasn't had the pleasure of watching it, it's essentially a time travel story. There's this like scepter that has the ability to transport people through time.
I think they got that from the Mirage comics, I assume, because that turns up with that Renee character and all that.
The rule is though that when you travel through time, you kind of replace somebody like of equal.
Yeah, meta displacement, Donnie calls it.
Yes, yeah. So when the you know when the I can't remember what comes first. Is it the 4 feudal
first
Japanese
April.
guys?
First April goes back by itself and gets captured, and then the turtles end up going back and they switch with the gut. They call them the honor guard, which is why when they go back, they've got their masks and the like samurai kind of armor and stuff on.
Yeah, so they're all transported back in time to feudal Japan, and they have to find April, rescue her, get back. But also at the same time, you've got this evil British dude called Walker who's selling weapons to a warlord, and he's going to help him take over. So the turtles have to do like a side quest where they kind of fight these baddies before they can go back and get back to the present day. And
we couldn't get Alan Rickman like Prince of Thieves. We got this guy.
Yeah, we got this guy. This guy, man, looks familiar. I think the guy Walker, he's in Waterworld. I think he's one of Dennis Hopper's like henchmen in Waterworld. Like, you might be able to confirm that now if you get any type of.
So Stuart Wilson is Walker. I'm just looking at the cast here.
Could be wrong. Maybe I am.
Let's have a look and see if he is in there. No, he's not in Waterworld, but he does
not in Waterworld. So he wasn't that lucky. He was not
that
lucky. he didn't make it out of this purgatory. He was probably in episodes of fucking Power Rangers and shit like that, going by the quality of acting. But yeah, he's trying to sell cannons and guns to the warlord so he can take over the place. Yeah, no, the reason I asked you when we started talking about this one, did you know anything about it or any, like, because I don't know why they even went for this as an idea for a Turtles movie at
Yeah.
all, instead of just doing like another like fighting bad guys in the city and fighting like evil
Yeah.
mutant monsters and stuff would have been the way to go. Like, you know, we got Toka and Razar in number 2. I was kind of expecting as a kid that we're going to get more of that, you know, more mutant bad guys.
Yeah, I'm guessing they didn't have the budget for more monsters and suits.
But like, it's crazy though, because we talk about how, you know, this is definitely not like living up to the visual kind of costuming and puppetry and stuff in the first 2, but it's shot in like broad daylight, so it's more obvious than ever, all the kind of the shortcuts and stuff with the costumes where
That's
you can
the weirdest
sometimes see,
thing,
like,
because even the first film, which has those amazing Henson suits, and it's all, you know, foam latex, and they're overheating and dehydrating. You'll basically die if you stay in it for more than an hour. So the film around all those limitations, and then have the stunt guys, and then dubbing the audio for the suit dudes. And one thing I noticed in this one is like the stupid lighting, which is so bright and it shows off every flaw, rather than having the creative lighting in the first one where you're hiding the flaws and you're hiding the guys' faces and the mouths. But when they turn sideways in this film, the mouths go so far out like an elongated head. And I thought, oh, that's why you can't see the suit actors. They've made their heads crazy wide.
yeah,
So it
like
must have been
frying
intentional.
pan heads. Yeah, it's just it's not as visually impressive at all when you see the turtles in this one compared to the first 2 movies.
They really
think
do look
in my
like
head,
TV turtles, like the Saban live action ones.
in my mind, in my own head canon, I must have been getting mixed up because for some reason I thought it turned out that the feudal Japanese warlord people were like the ancestors of the Foot Clan or something. I thought there was that connection there, but that's not
That would have
mentioned in
made
the
more
movie.
sense if they'd done something like that.
Yeah,
Because they've done that
I
in
must
other
be
later
getting that.
comics and animated
Yeah, I was
shows.
just going to say I must have been getting mixed up with a comic or something because it's
Yeah,
not
they've done
mentioned
several
at all in
variations
the
of
movie.
that story and other Turtles media. And it would have made more sense to do something like that instead of there is one guy who's one of the British guys, and when April 1st sees him, he's like calls him Casey, and he generically looks a little bit like him, but they kind of imply he might be his ancestor or something. But then they do nothing with that.
Yeah, yeah. I feel like they didn't put too much thought into expanding on any of the ideas they were kind of throwing out for Turtles
It's
3.
very kiddie, like the humor in it, like definitely for a younger audience. Like Turtles 2 went that way. This goes even younger and kiddier. But despite some of the cornball bad jokes, I still laughed at them.
Oh yeah, and I was like, you know, in a way,
Feels like the animated Turtles, that level of humor, where it's real cornball humor.
And it's not as crazy noticeable, say, as the difference between Robocop 1, 2, and 3. Like Turtles, even though Turtles 3 is still quite different to Turtles 1 and 2, but like it is more child friendly, but it still feels
action
like a
and jokes, which
natural.
the first film did have.
Yeah, it's got that vibe that the other movies did have. Like at least it kind of, you know, it succeeds in that aspect of it, but it's kind of bland though as well. Like, can you even think of give me I do remember there's one scene where I think there's like a horseback battle or something that's kind of memorable. But
That's
other
probably
than
the
that, I'm trying to
standout,
think
like
of
visually. That's about the first 40 minutes because you've got
Yeah.
they arrive there, they have the horseback battle and the rebels, and then later on we're in like the castle and see the other British dudes and that. That's probably the most like cinematic looking scene where it's like, but it's no better than watching an average episode of Stargate where they're fighting the Goa'uld, you know, and it's like in a nice forest in Canada or whatever.
Yeah, like at least in the second movie at the Puka and Razar, but also the showdown with Super Shredder, you know, at the end, which gave you like something. And then obviously in the first movie we got loads of great action kind of fight scenes, you know. So yeah, the third one kind of just kind of falls on its face a bit for that aspect of it, like with the But you know, they were trying to be kid friendly, and they were probably operating on a tight budget where they couldn't just do a lot of good stunts and
They
memorable
even
things.
repurposed in the toy line. Remember, they had movie star turtles that they were back with all the pimples and zits, but now they've got the samurai armor on.
Yeah, it made my my sewer samurai Leonardo feel special for a little while with all
Yeah.
these,
Oh, they got some
these
buddies.
samurai turtles in vogue, you know. Did this movie even get like a wide theatrical release, or was it like a straight
I
to
don't
video
know.
deal?
Like, it's not. I don't see what. I'm gonna have to check what year this even was. I couldn't remember. Now, have a quick look to see what year it was. TMNT 3 film. So what do we got? 1990, 1993 again. So there you go. So basically, the same years around Robocop 3 and leading up to Jurassic Park. And I was going to the cinema a lot during this era, and I did not remember it even being here. So it was probably there, but I definitely didn't see it.
Yeah, the first time I didn't remember even knowing about it until I saw it in the video shop one day, just right there beside number 1 and 2.
Yeah,
It's like,
it
what,
feels
there's a
like
third one?
Robo, like another one of those VHS rental on the weekend. Maybe your mum or dad's buying a pizza and wants you to piss off and go watch this in the other room and leave us alone for a while movies.
I do have like a vague recollection of seeing like TV spot trailers for it on,
Yeah.
you know, just
I didn't
general
see it till
terrestrial
years
TV.
after it was released. Like Turtles 1, I saw at the cinema because some other friend's family went and I got to go. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been going by myself then. Turtles 2, I saw it on VHS rental, but we saw it the week it was out, and I had the VHS store poster which had Vanilla Ice in the corner. Really, it annoyed me at the time because it was covering up some of the turtles. And number 3, I didn't see. I don't know when I first saw it. It might not have been until the end of the decade, closer to 2000. I saw it on DVD or something like that, or it might have been on TV.
About, Casey Jones playing hockey with the feudal Japanese warriors is probably the most memorable of the Casey Jones scenes in it. And it's clearly supposed to be like they're supposed to be in the same sewer setting as 2 because it shows like the train cars and stuff in the background.
Yeah,
But it doesn't look like it's actually anywhere close to even the same set. Like it looks like they're
it
on a
looks
fucking
like such a
sound stage.
crappy TV set. Everything's super bright and overlit from the top, and everything's like brighter than the fucking sun inside there instead of a sewer. And how hard is it to set dress a sewer? It's like get some crusty old couches like the first film from an actual junkyard and put them in there.
Yeah, it's really just it's like unambitious or something. Like the whole thing
Yeah.
maybe is maybe and I know that's probably like, well, what do I expect? It's like a fucking the third Turtles movie is unambitious. Well, you're a pretentious prick to think like, you know, but like you know what I mean. It's just it's not
But
even
it
trying.
feels like it's a
like a lot of the
studio
time.
pushed out sequel, but without the time, the effort, the writing, the budget that anyone really. I'm not saying anyone involved didn't give a crap, but it's like that thing, you know. It's like just the big machine. Let's turn out the next one. It's the next Michael Myers. It's the next Jason. The next Freddy. With 3 or 4 films in, it's like
Yeah, and it just it's a bit of a
sausage factory.
bit of a popcorn farce, you know. I was going to say, and of all the so of the trio, it's probably the weakest, I think, of these ones we're looking at. With Robocop coming in at number 2 in second place, and then Superman being the best of the worst. I actually nearly feel bad, kind of on reflection now of including Superman with these other 2.
Well, I needed another 3, and I wasn't going to go Rambo 3. I needed something else that was kind of PG and not too totally different from.
We could probably, I don't think it would take us too long to come up with another, trio of number 3s, so to speak.
Easily.
We could do something like
I
this.
went through a big list of 3s before I got ones that had kind of some similarities and stuff, but we can it's good to start off with like best of the worst, but they're still they're not quite trash cinema. You know, there's a lot of stuff that's way worse than these films.
Yeah. And you've got entries and series that they will vary. You wouldn't say they were really good or bad, but they might vary drastically. Like, something like Alien 3 is a very kind of divisive
still a
and
decent
varied
film.
film.
It's
Yeah.
not my favorite.
Terminator 3, you know, is
I
another
don't mind it.
example.
I'll
You know,
watch that on a Sunday.
yeah. So there's definitely
I've got my
we could definitely be
Nightmare on Elm
crossing.
Street box set. I can easily watch numbers 1 through
Yeah,
7 any takes. They're pretty decent.
yeah. In fact, I'd nearly say that Nightmare on Elm Street 3 could be my second favorite Nightmare on Elm Street.
Mm.
So,
Well, I think of all the
you know,
horror movie franchises, I think Nightmare has the best sequels of any horror thing.
you know what could be a good one to do is the Battle of the Number 3 3Ds with Jaws 3D versus
3D.
Friday the 13th Part 3 3D.
Yeah, we could do that. That's not like that idea.
With dodgy, you know, movement towards the camera because we have to get the audience to think it's, you know, it's coming through the screen.
We could have the Driller Killer Part 3. First he drills,
Killer.
and he kills.
Good old Uncle Buck. I was rewatching Home Alone recently, and I always loved the John Candy moments in Home Alone.
Yeah.
King of Polka Twist. Would you be in agreement with me in the order of how I would have ranked our
Yeah, I think so.
trio?
Like Superman 3, definitely the most entertaining of the 3 films. Probably the one I've seen the most because I saw it. Yeah, I saw it in cinema, saw it on VHS rental, and then probably on TV at some point. Turtles 3, I've probably watched it at least 3 to 5 times now, only because I think I've got a DVD and a Blu-ray version of it now. But I never owned it back in the 90s on VHS or nothing like that. So it's only because I didn't get to see it much back then, I kind of watched it a little bit more to catch up on all the other Turtles stuff. But yeah, it's like Superman 3 is definitely the best of the worst of these 3.
I know it was probably abundantly clear that I knew a lot more about the kind of production and history of Robocop 3 than I did about the other two. The truth is, though, I have that. It's like the Robocop Bible or whatever it's called. I think it's called like the Robocop, the definitive history. But it's a nice big fat book that has loads of these kind of facts and figures about the series. So it gave the dirt on, you know, the disaster of a kind of financial situation Orion was in at the time.
I've read plenty of articles about Turtles 1, 2 over the years, and then Turtles 3 is like it's like nobody cares enough to write articles about it.
Yeah. And, you know, it's not like, you know, Secrets of the Ooze is some, like, fantastic movie or anything. Like,
no.
it has some pretty awful moments in it. But at least it's trying to kind of go bigger than the first one. At least it's trying to be, like, a big-time sequel. Turtles 3, like I said, it just feels like they're on cruise control and they just don't give a shit.
Small.
They just, yeah, it's small time. And, you know, at the very least, though, it did give us some interesting figures in the Playmates vintage line, which I will plug our
they did the giant size ones as well,
catalogs.
the Samurai Doos.
That's right. That's right. But if anybody's interested in Ninja Turtles 3 merchandise, you should definitely watch
April in that little short skirt.
You can, yeah, little short.
Usually $10 on eBay.
Yeah, go check out our Playmates toy catalog, kind of read-alongs, because you'll see some of this stuff that actually came out of this movie. You'll get to see that weird Japanese feudal playset that for some reason comes with Bebop and Rocksteady and all that kind of weird shit. Like.
That was weird. Yeah, the figure, there was a whole kind of sub-line in the main Turtles line to do with the Turtles 3 tie-ins. And when you look at it, without the Turtles, it just looks like Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves. The figures somehow got into this Turtles line. Like
some of those sets where it will come with like a samurai warrior and a horse. It's just a nice looking kind of generic thing that looks like it has nothing to do with Turtles at all.
Yeah, they did do that same samurai horse they had with the Turtles. They brought back in the last 10 years in one of the modern lines, because I have one they released with Usagi. It's the exact same sculpt. They just dug it up like over 20 years later.
No, some cool stuff. But folks, let us know, like, you know, because we may have been unfair or unkind to, like, maybe someone out there is like, well, actually, motherfucker, Robocop 3 is the best of all the Robocops, and you're just a know-nothing shite bag.
But maybe in 6 months we might have to talk about those TV movies that I've tried unsuccessfully to watch multiple times, like the TV show.
Yeah, and we like I mentioned earlier, we might have to eventually venture into like Supergirl and Superman 4 Quest for Peace territory. You know, there's all sorts of avenues.
And there's
we can
Robocop
go down.
animated. Actually, there's 2 different Robocop animators about a decade apart.
And it was probably a good way to because even though we covered Robocop 1 and 2 in detail, if we'd done a video about Robocop 3 by itself, it probably would have just been me fucking complaining for 2 hours. So I think it was a nice way to actually work it in here, so I could vent about it a bit, but without like, you know, just taking a big dump.
Like, here's the scene where they should have spit polished the armor, but they didn't.
Here's the exact moment they ran out of money.
Here's the moment you can see the reflection of the camera in his helmet.
It probably happens. It probably does. There is one cheap shot in the movie where they have these special forces guys busting into a building and they're shooting their guns, but they do a mirror effect, so it looks like to make it look like they're breaking in both sides of the building. But it looks so cheap because it looks like they're breaking in and shooting at each other. It's a really dodgy special effect that they use, but you know, I'll not shit on it no more. Woohoo! I got a clone of my own. Virtual Mortality, part 1 of 4.
Yeah, so hint at what's coming next couple of weeks. We've got some more 90s themed stuff. Clone Saga of Spider-Man. And he's not dead yet, or he might be. He's back again. The old Death and Return of Superman.
Yeah, a pair of controversial 90s comic book stories. So
yes. I remember like they were yesterday. Like it feels like yesterday this stuff was in the shops. I mean, it is a reference, but I mean the first version. And
yeah, it's going to be we'll go with Spider-Man first since it was first in the picks, and then we'll come back to Superman. But a controversial time for comics.
I remember so many of these covers because I collected all this stuff.
Some people hate them. Some people love them. Some people fall somewhere in between. But we will discuss in great detail our feelings and thoughts on them. So we hope we're going to see everybody back next week,
because they, brought out a lot of characters and did weird plots, killed off certain ones, and then years later they started redoing the saga all over again. Like 20 years later, I'm like, why? Why are you doing it again?
Yeah, it's things like that where it's like, oh, you know that guy you thought was dead and it meant a lot. Well, he's not dead now, and it meant
that
nothing.
Guy that turned into literal powder and melted. He's back again.
So buy next week's issue to find out what happens.
Yeah. We'll catch you guys next week.
All right, folks. Take care.